So in childhood, like I was in the hospital by 2 months old from neglect. We lost our dad when I was 15 to an overdose. And then my mom when I was almost 22. Nothing in my life is making sense. Like I don't know how to get validation for myself. I don't know how to feel love. I mean, I was walking around believing I loved everybody in my life far more than they loved me. Like I really got to a place where I thought I might be schizophrenic because that's in my genes. It got to a place where I was holding myself to such a cross of perfectionism that I felt like my kids were better off without me. But we have defined accountability to mean to hate yourself and allow others to spew hatred on you every time you're not perfect.
This is a quote of yours. You are already all the things you're trying to become. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Broken Beautiful Me, where we gather in our sacred space for honest conversations and soul deep healing. I'm Kelly Buckley, your host, and each story we share and honor is a gentle reminder that even in our brokenness, we are beautifully becoming through hope, gratitude, and the quiet strength of resilience. So today I am so fortunate to have as our guest Malisa Hepner. She is a social worker from Oklahoma, an author and podcast host of Emotionally Unavailable podcast. And you need to check that out because I did this morning. It's awesome. She has overcome an extensive history of childhood trauma only to get well into adulthood before realizing trauma's significant lasting impact. And I think that's something that we can all relate to as well. She reached burnout in every area of her life, and she went through a period of profound darkness. Deciding to give healing one more chance, she began moving the pieces of her life. She quit her job. She started a podcast and opened a private practice. She is now teaching others how to rid themselves of shame and find unconditional love for themselves and for each other. Malisa, it is an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Me too. So let's just jump right in. Your journey began with some pretty significant hardship, your childhood trauma, and then you found, as I said in the intro, you realized that the effects of trauma can bounce back. Can you take us back a little bit to your early experiences and how those painful beginnings really shaped the person you are today and the path that you are taking to help others?
Yeah. So in childhood, like I was in the hospital by 2 months old from neglect or failure to thrive is what they were diagnosing me with, but it was directly related to having parents who were addicts and just not providing the level of care needed. I have two siblings that I was raised with. I have other half siblings, but for the context of this conversation, because this was my little unit. I had a brother immediately older than me, like 13 months, and then a brother 14 months younger. So, like, my mom didn't have the best of circumstances anyway. But yeah, super addicted parents. And we kind of did this whole back and forth between my grandparents and my mom. Not really my dad. I mean, he was around some, but they were divorced by the time I was 5. There was a lot in those first 5 years with him too, but I don't even have a lot of memory of it. But, then my grandpa actually left us and my grandma when I was like 11, and we officially entered into kinship foster care. We had been in the foster system when I was younger, but when we exited the system, she had guardianship of us, but we weren't monitored. But then we were actually like in a foster system after my grandpa left, and there was some whole drama around that too. But it was a good thing for us because it offered a lot of opportunities and support for me, particularly because I was the golden child. So I was constantly doing what needed to be done to make sure, I could get that love and validation from others. But I mean, that's kind of, I say that I have the highest A score possible if you're familiar with the adverse childhood experiences questionnaire, because then that will just wrap it up in a really nice bow that I experienced every kind of abuse you can experience, neglect, all of the things. And then because I was the golden child and I didn't present the way my siblings did, because we lost our dad when I was 15 to an overdose, and then
Mhm.
my mom when I was almost 22. But because I wasn't running around, I'll say living my pain out loud the way that they were. And I had a narcissistic grandmother also. So that was a whole other separate set of issues. But I was taught to minimalize and trivialize my experiences. Even the idea of kinship foster care, it's taken work for me to be able to take up space in that area, because it's like, should I really call myself a foster kid? I mean, I feel okay about saying it for my earlier placements because I was placed before a year old, but it still is something I struggle with to say, like, yeah, that was a lived experience that I can honor versus comparing it to someone else's experience, because that's what I and most of us are taught to do in childhood. And so I like to say that I kind of made all the right decisions for all the wrong reasons. I mean, not all the right decisions. I met a boy when I was 18 and a half, moved in right away, married him because I lost my virginity to him, decided having children at 22 was an excellent idea. Like, that was a planned pregnancy. And obviously now I'm like, oh, honey. But at the time, I was just doing what you're supposed to do in this little thing, And I was one of those people that was like, yeah, I don't think that my childhood really affected me that much. Cause I mean, like, I'm, living and doing what I'm supposed to do. I didn't take like a traditional path to college, but I did end up completing my bachelor's and then my master's. Had another child with that man that I had married. We're since divorced, but I just was doing everything that I thought I was supposed to do to check off this list of, like, this is how you know you're successful. Um, Cut to mid 40s, and nothing in my life is making sense. Like, I don't know how to get validation for myself. I don't know how to feel love. I mean, I was walking around believing I loved everybody in my life far more than they love me, and that I'm on the periphery of all of my relationships because everybody's good to come to me when they need something, but who is there for me when I need them? There is truth to that because I was emotionally unavailable. So obviously I surrounded myself with people just like me so that it could continue to confirm all of the narratives that kept me really safe. That's all subconscious behavior, but in hindsight, I can fully understand that that's what I was doing. And so, yeah, when I say profound darkness, I made a plan to end my life because I was just done. Like, I had tried really, really hard and hit that wall so hard, feeling like, you know what, like, we gave it the old college try. I'm not good at this. And truly, like, where the change happened into that line of thinking is, prior to that, my kids were the reason for living, but it got to a place where I was holding myself to such a cross of perfectionism that I felt like my kids were better off without me. And the truth is, that girl that wanted to die just wanted to die because she wasn't perfect, because she didn't know all the answers like she thought she was supposed to. And so
Mm.
I changed my mind because I set a date that was pretty far off in the future because I didn't want to do it around my kids' birthdays. And because I set the date for farther off, it gave me a chance to kind of chill. It took the pressure off to have a date and a plan because my mind was very consumed with, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I. Once I made the decision and had it all set up, then I didn't have to think of should I, shouldn't I. So within 3 days of deciding on the date, I was like, okay, since that's so far away, we're going to try. And yeah, I mean, when I say moving pieces, literally, I was holding on by a thread, but I just started trying to do whatever I could to get in like a flow state to quiet my mind, because I now know I was just covered in shame that was creating a lot of noise internally that was very loud. Like I really got to a place where I thought I might be schizophrenic because that's in my genes. My brother is schizophrenic and my mom had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but based off how she described it to me, I think she was experiencing the same thing I was. I think that she just had a lot of internal noise that she didn't know how to deal with. And so, yeah,
Right.
I just kind of started putting pieces together little by little by little. And then I'm here now.
Well, and I'm so glad that you are. That's incredible. Kind of where you came from and what you've accomplished to date with your life. Considering the hardships and struggles, do you feel like at all that you making that decision and setting that date for yourself, and then you immediately started to move the pieces? Do you feel like, okay, you made this conscious decision and that quieted that part of your mind so that you could see the possibility of your life going forward? Do you think it played a part?
Um, Maybe a fraction of the noise quieted because I at least wasn't trying to make a really important decision.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the decision that made it very real to me that
Yep.
I am far worse off than I have thought I was, and that something had to give. So it was a motivator to figure it out for sure. But I remember the months following being really hard. Like it wasn't as hard because I had made a decision to live. And so you move a little differently, like there was a commitment
Mm-hmm.
to the living in the way that I had been kind of committed to dying. So,
Yeah.
yes, it did, but I was still really struggling with the noise.
So, how did you deal with the noise? I know that writing for you was part of it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, truly, well, so at first it was just survival mode, trying to quiet in any way I could, and that looked like getting creative. I had started some creative projects because I had worked as a school counselor, and for a bullying school-wide lesson, I created this little story, The School That Cried Bully, because I was trying to get kids to understand what was and wasn't bullying. It's a cute little story for a school, but it's kind of a dumb book. But I had someone in my life that was trying to learn how to self-publish a children's book, and this is such a classic example of who I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's not like that hard. Let me show you. So I created that story into an actual book and self-published it so that I could show her, like, she's never even touched any of it for her whole like experience. But I was like, what? I wanted to show her it was possible, but it gave me something to do. And I found creativity that I didn't really know I had. I mean, I had written and published a book before that, but I didn't really know that I had that creativity. And then I just started other books. Like I did more children's books. I did a cute little advice book for like, I pictured teenagers or girls in their 20s. At some point in there, I made a journal. But yeah, I just did creative things that could take my focus completely and zone out into that instead of just being really like colluded. But honestly, what really like shifted everything for me was after I started my podcast. I had a lady on my show very early on that I just happened across because, like in the early days, it's hard to get guests. And so I happened across her on Facebook and asked her to be on my show, and she was. And she works for a guy in Arizona or his name is Troy Love, and he has what's called the Finding Peace Method. And he wrote this book, the Finding Peace Workbook, and he breaks shame down into different archetypes, which was exactly what I needed because I had gotten to this stage of the noise being very different, well, archetypes, like different parts of me arguing with each other is what it felt like. Because one would be like, Melissa, because where all my shame came from was my reactivity. I was very reactive because I lived in survival mode from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep. And not to strangers or people that I wasn't close with, always the people who were my closest, my family, my husband, my friends. And so the shame that I was carrying over that was really deep seated because my grandma, the narcissist, would also do things. She's been gone for 10 years now too, but she would do things like, your brother has such a better heart than you. Like he would give the shirt off his back and you're selfish and you're mean. And mean was just ingrained in me. And I wasn't mean. I mean, yes, some of the things I did, I'm sure hurt people's feelings, but it was just, I had a very sharp tongue and it was very quick because it was all triggered responses. It wasn't, I didn't make an active choice to be mean because really I would freeze or fawn if I had the choice. But like there were times it was just something rude and or just in a sharp way and never for no reason. You know what I mean? But I just didn't know how to like temper any of that because I again was living in survival mode. So I just had this cloak of I'm mean, I'm not a good person, I don't have a kind heart, to where like when people would say these really nice things about me, you have a heart of gold, I'm like, oh no, because if you knew me you wouldn't say that. So I was really struggling with all of that just internalness of imperfection, you know. And so
Yeah.
for me, the archetypes really helped because I could understand why one part of me was like, Melissa, you know better than that. And then the other part of me is like, well, I wouldn't have done that if they hadn't done da 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 da. And then, you know, the judge is coming back in to tell me again. And then these other little archetypes, but it all made sense to me. And finally, after a couple of conversations with her, because I had her on, I think 2 or 3 times, because I was like, free therapy, come on, baby. Um, I've learned so much from people on my show because I will, like, if I'm in a fight with my husband and there's a relationship coach, I'm like, so let me ask you this real quick. Why did I do that in this conversation? You know, like I will, I've learned so much from my guests on my show, but, yeah, so I just was kind of like, okay, this makes so much sense to me. And my brain slowed just enough for me to start to identify those. When one would come up, I could be like, oh, that's all this. And you get really good at understanding what the function of that is too. What is it actually trying to protect me from? And then
Yeah.
that led me to understanding why I'm such a dismissive person. Like when other people are hurting, why I'm quick to be like, either let me fix it for you so you don't have to feel anything, or let me tell you why you're probably overreacting, all in the sweetest way ever, like with my friends and family. Like I was the caregiver, but still dismissive. And I was like, oh, I'm doing that because of my shame, because I can't handle the way I feel when I can't fix things, or especially with my kids, man, if they're feeling anything other than happy, it triggers every little ounce of my shame. And I'm like, it's not your responsibility, Melissa. And I realized too, it had impacted my relationship with my siblings too, because they didn't make choices that I wanted them to make. And I thought I was just judgmental. And then I came to the understanding like, no, as their sister, who was very much a caregiver in our little childhood, where we are left abandoned in houses for however long until my grandma realizes that my mother's left us again and shows up and saves us, which, I mean, she always did, but still, in my little heart, I was responsible for those boys. And I carried shame that in my adulthood, I hadn't reached a level of wealth where I could support them. It's not a
Mhm.
logical feeling. I'm not saying that I should be responsible for them. My conscious self knows. I mean, I will say if I ever did reach that level of wealth, I would make sure that they had a place to live. But
Yeah.
like, I don't have to. And it's okay if I exist and have a life that I'm in love with, even if they don't have that. But I was really struggling, and how that would look is my younger brother would come to me with his hurt and pain over things happening in his life. And I would not say things to him necessarily, but in my heart, I'm like, well, that's what you get for blah, 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 blah. And so I just realized how much shame was impacting every area of my life and every interaction I had with people. And so getting that figured out, that's when it stopped. I understood what it was.
So I find this fascinating. And you said it was Troy Love who
Mm-hmm.
came up with these archetypes for
Uh-huh.
shame.
Yep.
So, and because in particular, women love to feel shame about who
Yes.
they are, who they are not.
Mm-hmm.
And when as I'm listening to you describe this shame that you have for being a caretaker, um, that's not like that would not be something I would think to be ashamed of, because that's something for you to be proud of. You were a child and you stepped into a role that you should not have had to do, right, as a child yourself.
Right. But it felt like a failure. It felt like I had failed. No, it wasn't necessarily the act of the caregiving. I felt like I failed them as a sister.
Yeah,
Like that as we aged, I didn't take good enough care of them. And it wasn't anything that I ever was conscious of. I did
yeah,
not think at all. If you had asked me, I would have laughed at you. But really uncovering it, and it was almost like someone poses a theory and you start to test the theory, and then
yeah.
that's when I was like, well, let me just see, like, is that, and boy, I could feel it deep in my spirit, like, yeah, honey, that was never your responsibility. But it was good to identify, because I could
Right.
see all the ways in which I was living in that manner, where I feel like I'm letting everyone else down. And really, I guess, truly, I was letting myself down because I wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah. And I think that's what I find fascinating. Like I've already made a note to go look at this,
I have
um,
all my clients buy that book.
because what type of shame are we carrying but not realizing we're carrying? And I
Exactly.
think that you've identified right there. You would have never thought that that would have been a thing, but that's
Never.
what bubbled up. And
Mhm.
I'm one like how many of us are doing that? We're just carrying something around, feeling shame about it. It's affecting every relationship, every decision that we make, and but we can't recognize it because
No.
it's just always been this beneath the surface part of us.
That, and the second biggest learning tool that I got really familiar with was understanding how much we intellectualize our experiences. And so we live, especially as women, I think we overthink in a very specific way because we are taught that all the things are our responsibility.
Right.
So the way that we overthink, I mean, look at the numbers of women with anxiety and OCD in this country, world. I mean, because we're not in the same country, but like, it's a lot. And I learned the root of anxiety is the fact that we don't know how to get into our heart to feel. And so when I was able to relinquish the thoughts and understand that our brain isn't like here to feel, it's here to keep us alive, and it will lie to you as much as it can. It will feed you catastrophe at every turn just to keep you alive.
Mhm.
Great, you're doing a great job, brain. But when I sat there and really just said, let's just see, like, does that feel like something that might be true for you? When I got into my heart, even talking about it, my chest hurts because I remember the deep seated wounding that I finally could connect with, to see that, yeah, baby, you still feel like that little girl that was supposed to keep this promise that you made to your dead parents. Also, like, beyond the childhood stuff, when you're saying goodbye to your parents, you say the things that, and I don't mean goodbye on their deathbed, except my mom, I did have a chance to say goodbye, but my dad was very sudden. But especially my mom, that's a great example. I'll make sure the boys are okay, like, blah blah blah, all the things that you think you're supposed to not just say but do. And you set
Mhm.
yourself up for failure, obviously, because I can't take care of these boys. They're grown men who don't make good choices, one of which is chronically unmedicated, unhoused, and schizophrenic. So, like, I can't take that on.
No.
But I felt like I was supposed to, because that's what we've been taught. Not to mention all the religious trauma programming that I was trying to shed too. So, yeah, when I really sat with it and just said, just see, just see, we don't have to be defensive. We don't, does this seem like something that makes sense? Because you are trying to protect yourself from something. What is it? And that's when I realized, like, oh, that's, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a good enough sister.
Oh, my gosh. The the burdens that we carry quietly that no one knows about,
Mhm.
that's one thing that I have really learned from doing this podcast and meeting people is realizing that all this time that we carry this stuff quietly, and when we start talking to each other, that's when we help each other heal. And I was a very private person before I started doing all this stuff. And I would not have shared my journey with anybody. That was my thing. It was closed up in here. It was nice and safe. And I think I really held myself back because of that fear.
Yeah,
So I applaud you for doing the work, because it is work
it
to
is.
kind of navigate it, to dig in and say, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so, what do I have to do to get me to this place? So, tell me how you made that shift. So, you made the decision, you get out of this job, you start the podcast. Tell me what that was like for you. Because, I mean, it must have been both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
That's exactly what it was. So I knew that I would have a paycheck until August because the last day of school was May something. So I had a little bit of a cushion, but I was freaking out. I mean, I'm married, but we've always had separate finances because it's my second husband, and I was a stay-at-home mom the first time, and I was never gonna with the money again.
Yeah.
But so I really felt this pressure. First of all, I was experiencing real hyper independence, and like we've always done it this way, so I have to do it this way. And I have a car payment, and I have a very expensive student loan, and just other little things that I pay for. And so, like, I knew we would be as a family okay, but I I didn't even see how I had tied so much like self-worth and validation to the fact that like I had an income that I was proud of, and that like um I was able to finance my first car by myself, like, at some point in this marriage, whenever I, started making more money and whatever. But two cars, like the first one, and then I traded that in a few years later. I took way too much pride in that, and like, look, this is my esteem. So that was something to really work through, was my worth being tied to my income level. I
Hmm.
was lucky enough to kind of figure that part out fairly early on. And during my healing, I really had like a spiritual awakening. And so I felt very fundamentally supported by whatever you want to call a higher power. For me, I say universe, but I felt like I was living in my purpose, so you can't really go wrong. And that wasn't going to mean I wasn't going to experience hardships, but that finally, for the first time in my life, I'm actually following like my dreams, not just because I felt like I was living in my purpose before too, like, and it was just different steps that I've taken to get to where I am now. But like, I wanted to pursue my dreams finally, and go be a public speaker too, do my podcast. Like, I love my podcast. I had wanted to do one for so long, and it's not really as much about like I want a famous podcast as like even just having a podcast that impacts people's lives. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna say I wouldn't love if it like blew up and I was famous, like that'd be cool. But like, I want to impact people. And
Right.
so, yeah, I was terrified, but I was really just leaning into a spirit of gratitude and setting a foundation for success, which is right now all of my needs are met. And if I'm not thinking about yesterday and I'm not thinking about tomorrow and I'm just living right here, right now, everything is fine. And there's no reason to believe that it won't be fine. And even through a lot of ups and downs and stress financially throughout this last like year and a half, 2 years, I don't even know how long now. Um, Still, it's easy to remain steadfast in like, well, there's just something I haven't figured out yet, but it's going to come, or whatever. I mean, I'm still working on stuff like that because I haven't reached the level of financial success that I want to yet, but I'm okay with that because I do believe in the divine nature of timing. So I think it was easy for me to just lean into the spiritual aspects of healing and understand that I was supported no matter what. And I think too, like when you do get into a little bit of the woo woo, even though I was woo woo, I also was hearing people who were very rooted in science talking about how we create our reality, and
Mhm.
abundance gets to be defined however you define it. And opening my heart to everything being abundant, like the small things, like I pull out of a, we live on a road that when you turn out left, it's incredibly difficult to do. And I'm notoriously scared to turn out left of places. Like I've just always been kind of a fraidy cat driver like that. And one day I was pulling out, and then I like didn't even have to wait, pulled out safely and quickly. And then a green light that is always red that like backs up the traffic on that road, it's green. And I was like, look, everything works out for us. Like that was abundance to me. And so when you open your eyes to all of the little magical gifts in the world, like a butterfly or a beautiful tree, flowers, it just changes your perspective so much. And so I just leaned into stuff like that too.
I love what you're saying here, because that is essentially how I operate in my life, and how I got through the loss of my son was, I said, I can't change what happened yesterday, and I can't be afraid of what's going to come in the future, because my life was falling apart. I can
Mm-hmm.
only focus on right here, right now, and right here, right now, I'm okay. And I found that looking for gratitude in the little things, not the big things, like there's nothing materialistic about gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't say, oh, the car. And I mean, I know you're grateful for your car, or your new outfit, or whatever, but the true gratitude that comes in times of change and struggle and suffering is the stuff that you can't buy with money. It is you making that turn and saying, everything works out for us.
Mm-hmm.
Or look at that flower in my garden. Or sometimes I'll see a butterfly, and that's kind of my symbol for my son, Steven. And
Is it?
so it is.
That's so
Yeah.
funny because I felt like saying butterfly, but butterflies aren't really my thing. So maybe Steven's communicating.
Listen, I don't doubt that anymore. I've been around a number of years now where things have happened, and I just kind of say, okay, Steven, you're just letting me know you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to think that, and as you said, like the higher source brings you what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you bring gratitude into that, because a lot of times when people go through stuff, um, it doesn't seem like that's the time for them to start a gratitude practice, does it?
Right. Well, and I remember being really triggered by like, there's always something to be grateful for. I remember, but I think it's because I was being told that by emotionally unavailable people. So, like, I don't want somebody who doesn't understand where I'm sitting to give me any platitudes. So, I understand the triggering nature of that phrase. But
Hmm.
when I got to the place where I could be grateful, even for all that dark that I had just come out of, because
Yeah.
you can't feel the light in every little thing that happens in life until you've been through darkness like that. Like you
Yeah.
cannot, that you've experienced the worst loss you can experience. So going through that, and not that you would ever feel grateful for the loss of your child, but the darkness has allowed you to be able to see light because that's the only way it works.
Yeah. Well, and I often describe the first year after Stephen passed, I describe it as the most awake year of my life.
I bet.
I saw life for, what I think it's really meant to be. I saw relationships like, why are you worrying about the petty little stuff? It's all
Mhm.
about the love. It's so interesting how your perspective can change from struggle, but yet we live in a society that just wants everything to be perfect and
Mhm.
shiny and filtered on Instagram and all those things. But that's just not realistic. That's not how
Right.
life works. We have to go through the struggle to appreciate the light, as you said.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, Kelly here. I wanted to jump in and let you know that you can find out more about my work by visiting my website at kellybuckley.com, or you can find my books on Amazon. Okay, back to the episode. You've turned your pain into purpose. So tell us what you are doing now and how that feels for you, having turned the corner. You're doing this in your way. And as you said, there's always things that you're going to improve upon. I'm a daily work in progress. I can tell you that. There should be like one of those orange cones sitting in my office. So how does it feel now, and when you're helping other people heal?
It's crazy because I get as much out of anything that I do as the people that I'm helping, like on the podcast, I I get so much energy from those conversations because I'm still open to learning new things. And so whether it's somebody coming on to have a conversation about their struggles or somebody who's, an expert in their field, I'm learning. I'm learning all the time. And that's the thing I'm committed to, is continuing to grow. But I think that's what really drew me to your show name, is because everything, it was like a whole separate awakening when I got to the place where I realized, like, there's not a destination that we're headed toward. We're never going to be perfect. It's never going to look the way you thought it was going to look. Like, I'm a really good human and I still cuss at my husband.
Right.
Like, I'm a really good human and I still yell at my children. I'm a really good human and my house looks like a disaster. Like, none of that changes my worth or value as a human. And it doesn't mean I'm not good. It doesn't mean I'm not good enough. And I was always working towards meeting all the aesthetic boxes for how to know whether or not you've reached success. And what I had to realize was, like, right there in that messy little middle, you're successful. Like, you're alive, you're breathing, you're doing the damn thing. Like, it doesn't, what is success if it's not this? And so
Right.
just getting really comfortable with being messy. Because that's something that I really noticed we all do, especially when we start a healing journey, is we think that healing journey has a time length. And so, like, I would say I'm healed now because I understand, but I'm always going to be growing and evolving as a human because that's what I really want to do. But
Mhm.
like, before, I'm like giving myself such a hard time because I'm not perfect. And I feel like we all will judge our healing, like, especially when you get the information, because it's, what's the famous phrase, know better, do better, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's truth in that, but no one's ever saying sometimes. Like, you're going to sometimes do it better and sometimes you're not, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
I say this all the time and it sounds so dramatic, but I feel like we are holding ourselves to that cross of perfection. Like, that's the standard, period. And if you can just lay that down and understand that, like, that's not accountability. That we have defined accountability to mean to hate yourself and allow others to spew hatred on you every time you're not perfect. And I held myself to that. And guess what? I held everyone around me to that too. Like, maybe I understand that we're not perfect, but you at least have to hate yourself and let me hate you when you make a mistake. What the crap? Like, I really lived like that. I mean, that wasn't the thought because it was all subconscious, but I mean, I definitely was like, if I did that, you would blah, blah, like, just holding people to these impossible standards. And so, yeah, I think I've gotten really good at just being like, I'm a really imperfect human, but I'm really good at being a human because that's what we're supposed to be, is imperfect. So, like, I'm doing a great job at that. I am so good at being a human. But in terms of how it feels like, I don't even know how you could put a good word to it. Amazing. As a therapist, I love I just got a new client a couple weeks ago and they came to me so broken, at least feeling that way, and I was like, baby, listen, you're not broken. Okay. You need a little bit of shift in what you think to be the truth, but you're fine. And just like, talking to them like I'm talking to you right now, because I made a commitment when I started that practice, like they're getting all of me and I don't care. Like I'm not following every little last rule of what a therapist should be, because I want real change in this world. And when I changed, the world around me changed. In my house, my children are different, my husband is different. The ripple effect of just my household is
Right.
huge. And so that's the effect that I'm trying to make. Like with my clients, they get to go change their little worlds, and then the people that they help change, they're doing that, and that is very important to me. And so I just give them everything that I am. I'm gonna say bad words, I'm gonna do whatever it is that happens that day, because that's who I am as a human. Like I've censored myself for your show, but I cuss a lot usually, and they're gonna get exactly who I am, because that's where my magic is. And I had to really lean into that and stop watering myself down for anyone, because I do have a gift in the way that I relay information, and I'm comfortable saying that now, whereas before I wasn't. But like I know that there are people who didn't get what I got from that book and able to like communicate it to others to help them be reached too. I know that. And so I really want to give that information to people. I have no problem promoting someone else's book every day for the rest of my life, because it changed me. And so that's the kind of work I'm doing, is just constantly trying to get people to see, like, we've made it a little too hard for ourselves, because it does feel big. It does feel loud. And I get that more than anyone, promise you that. But then that's why you can trust when I say, it's not that hard, sweetheart. We're going to get through this. And my clients see real change within 6 weeks. If they stay around, it's just because they love me, and they, maybe they don't have a lot of friends, so they love to like, continue to come, which I love them. Like I've really tried to keep my relationships like, or the practice, like it's very sacred to me. And so I don't want to take on a ton of clients, because I love the sacredness of the relationship, but mama need money. So, we are, so where I've shifted focus, and I mean, I am taking clients, but where I've really shifted focus is affordable workbooks for people. So I've just been creating those, because it's just a little like, after that first client, or the last client that I got, finally everything clicked together, where I was like, okay, I've been wanting to teach people how to, like, a step by step, when you're overthinking, what to do, how to get out of it, how to ground, and then how to recover. And talking to her that day, it all came together. And so I made a workbook real quick, and I sent it to her for free, because I was like, you inspired me. Here you go, honey. But like, I give my clients my workbooks for free. But I'm just really trying to make maximum impact, because I believe that the more people like us that are headed in the same direction, like maybe the modalities are different between us, but like between our podcasts, between the therapists, between the coaches, between just, somebody just sharing their story, like if the more united we are into the same direction of creating a world where people are in touch with their humanity, that's how
Yeah.
we tamper some of the crazy that we're seeing now. And so while it's very scary to see so much bad in the world, I'm very confident that there are good people like me who are leaning into our humanity and learning to love ourselves better and give ourselves more compassion and grace. And the more you're able to give that to yourself, the more you're able to offer it to others. And when
Mhm.
more of us out there who are awoken to that, the better this world becomes.
I am 110% on board with that. That's how I believe too. It's not going to happen. What needs to heal in the world is great. It's a great open wound,
Mhm.
but it's not going to heal in one fell swoop. We all have to
Right.
play our part. And these types of conversations where we talk about being a human that is imperfect, but perfectly imperfect, where
Mm-hmm.
we talk about it's okay for your life to be a mess and you can still walk out that door and help somebody, even if
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait for things to be perfect. The climate is never going to be perfect. You're never going to feel perfect enough to step outside. So just step outside now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am very grateful for the work that you are doing in your podcast. Tell our listeners a little bit more about these booklets, because I think I saw them on your site this morning. I was checking it out.
They're just little instant downloads, very cheap. And the first one that I created is actually called Surviving the Shit Show, because I was doing a course with some folk and I wanted them to have the workbook up front. And so I created it, and it really is just about building up your inner world when the world around you is falling apart. That can look like on a global level, or maybe you're the only one in your family system who's got it together and a lot's going on, or maybe your family's crumbling, but how can you continue to build inside? Like, you've experienced a tragedy, but how, like, that's a perfect example of like, how can I do this even when everything around me is just crumbling? And
Right.
so that's a 4-week thing where there's just a lot of practices for connecting with yourself. It's really about presence and mindfulness, teaching you to live in the moment, because that's the way we survive this, is not thinking large scale, which granted, TikTok will get me in a really bad place sometimes when I start to see a little too much of the stuff that's going on in the world, because I kind of have to receive that information on a certain timeline to be able to, hold it a little bit. But this morning I was getting all pissed off again, and I was like, okay, you know what? This is not it today. Because, women's rights are under attack in my country. And so, yeah, it's really just about narrowing your focus, which is what we were always meant to do anyway, but it's a struggle, because that's not what we're taught. We don't know how to live in a very present way. So that's that one. And then Safe to Be Seen is one that is really about connecting with yourself enough for you to be able to see you and hold you, and then get so strong in the love that you have for you that you are allowed to let your light shine without being so afraid of the way that the world will try to dim your light. They will, but
Yep.
how you will stop caring about that because you're so in love with yourself. And so we talk a lot about other people seeing us, but when we learn that it wasn't their job to see us or to hold us, it was our job. And when we do that for ourselves, first of all, you will feel seen and heard by more people, because you can receive when you give to yourself, but you will care much less about it when you get really full of love and unconditional positive regard for yourself. So that's Safe to Be Seen. And then what is my other one? Oh, the How to Stop Overthinking.
Yes.
There's a trigger tracker in there. There is a quick step guide for, okay, when I'm triggered, what's the first thing I do? Which is like, identify the wound that it hit. Why? What came up, taking the responsibility, no more victimization, which we don't know that we're doing oftentimes. I found that I was the center of all the conflict in my life, and I was the problem. And so, just really getting to a place where you can own what's happening and say, okay, this is what came up. That doesn't mean it's their truth or the truth. It was just my truth in that moment, that, I'm feeling a little betrayed. I'm feeling a little neglected. I'm feeling rejected, no big
Yep.
deal. I'm not going to assign meaning, morality, or emotion to those things anymore. They just are what they are. We're going to allow them, and then we're going to go to the next step. So I've got little steps, and then like how to get rid of the energy once you've like addressed the issue, because it used to drive me nuts when people would be like, you just feel it and release it. And I was like, I would love to do that. I would love more than anything to not be stuck in this brain that just cycles thought after thought after thought, and fighting with people, and, hating myself and them, and, all the time. Tell me how to feel it and release it. And so between the 3 of those books, you learn how to experience a feeling. But I will tell you, the Finding Peace workbook helped me with that too, because you learn to externalize thoughts and give
Mhm.
them a name. You give them a color, you give them a texture, you do all the things so that you can understand what's real and what's not, because none of that was me. and you can learn how to connect to your own voice and your own intuition, because that's the thing we've really been robbed of through childhood. The earlier it happens, the worse it is, but it's bad for all of us because we are so disconnected from self at a very young age. When we're taught to hug a relative because that's what you're supposed to do, and not because you're comfortable to hug the relative or say hi even, or strangers in the grocery store that come up to compliment your child and you force them to interact with them because that's what you do. Like the more autonomy that we had stripped of us, the less we learn to listen to our own voice, because why would we need to? We're learning to be compliant. So that's the big focus, is really just getting in touch with your intuition. And things really shift when you can learn what your voice sounds like versus the voices of your caregivers or the programming of greater society at large. And just connecting with that intuition and learning to trust in that and in you. Because like, even when I was religious, I would be like, oh my, so I just felt God telling me, and I'm not making fun of anyone for that, but like, in my current beliefs, I'm like, baby, that was you. Like, you are telling you, like, every time I wanted to source out my power and be like, oh, that was someone else, that's my intuition. I just never learned how to hear it, And so, yeah, those are kind of the different pieces of the workbook, the 3 different ones I have right now. But I'm going to be making monthly ones, but like, more like seasonal, but not like I'm going to release one at the end of August too, but just different topics. Like that one will be on perfectionism. But yeah, I'm just trying to do little easy things that aren't overwhelming for people, that they can take in the information and then integrate the information. Because how many times have we learned something new but didn't know what to do with it,
Exactly. I love that you're doing them, and I love the names of them. I know I have to get the overthinking one for myself. And probably the shit show one too. And you said you censored, and I have to tell you, listen, I censor myself too. I grew up in Newfoundland, Canada, and I love a little colorful language myself. So maybe we'll have to do a second episode.
Yeah.
That we'll have because
one with more bad words.
Yeah, with more bad words, because I could definitely jump right in there.
Oh yeah, well, it's colorful is a good way to put it. It's very vibrant.
Well, sometimes there's certain words that just describe things so perfectly.
No, I
Right?
have to agree. I mean, I did say a couple of little small ones because it felt appropriate, darn it.
Listen, you are in the right room to do that with me.
Well, good.
So those booklets, and as I was listening to you chat and thinking about your podcast, that is a good referral after people listen to some of your podcast episodes too, to kind of really tune in and say, okay, this is what I'm hearing from this guest and from Malisa. And now I can follow up with these booklets and keep working on that for myself. I just think it's a wonderful resource. And like you said, it's not too much.
Right.
You're not asking people to, write a manifesto about their emotions.
Exactly. Like the Safe to Be Seen one is very little. It's a very short little workbook. It's just a few different practices in each of those little categories. And thank you for saying the way that you have framed that, because the thing that I sometimes feel, I'm going to use the word insecure because I can't reach for a better one, but I doubt about with my show is, what is the point? I mean, I know what the overall, goal is, but I love conversations like this. This is how every conversation on my show is, very natural and organic. And I'm always like, did you learn stuff from it? I mean, I know I do, because I get feedback that's like, oh, that guest, blah, 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 and I get it. But I guess I'm glad and didn't even make the connection that, like, here's this. And then if you need more specifics, you can go here to get the workbooks, and I do feel more of a direction with those because it gives me that creative outlet that I love so much. And I get to play around and do things like that. And I feel like they're very beneficial. Like my client that I sent them to, she was like, the trigger tracker made me so happy. And I was like, oh my God, I almost didn't put that in there. And thank you for that feedback, because like, I was so glad that somebody actually wanted to like see the data of
Yeah.
this time of day. Cause I know for myself, baby, catch me tired or hungry or the combination of both, I'm going to live in a triggered state. Last night, I was like, listen, family. I mean, my family all knows about my period every month. They know when the PMS starts. They know when I started my period, and they know exactly what I need from them, which is, y'all going to need to not be asking me for things right now, okay? I need rest and I need quiet. So, but, so the trigger, there's a couple different trackers in there, but yeah, thank you. Because like, I think that's been something I've been working through over the last month, is like, what do I want my priority to be? Because I don't want to chase clients. I really don't. I want that relationship to stay sacred. If they come, whatevs. But like, I don't want to be like, please come work with me. It's just not my thing. I just don't want that. I want a global impact, and me one-on-one isn't going to do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I know exactly what you mean, because for years I have struggled with, okay, so I feel like this is a heart-centered business. I feel like the work that I'm doing is to help like the greater good. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's my responsibility. I learned some lessons from my own darkness. And so let me just light a little candle over here and see if I can help a few people out. And it's very difficult in a heart-centered business to be like, yeah, but I never want to come across as salesy about anything, or it's a struggle.
It
And
is.
especially for women who are nurturers, to have this work and then it's your business. Like, you have to put food on your table. You have to do
Right.
things like that. That is a huge struggle that women heart-centered business owners have to work through. It's not easy.
Yeah, and it's almost like I gave myself permission to do these workbooks the way that I am, because I can do them so inexpensively. Like, it doesn't cost me really anything to do it, versus if I were to make them a book that an actual workbook that you could purchase off Amazon, that would cost me money and I would have to charge more because of what it cost me. Whereas
Yeah.
this, I threw out a number that felt reasonable. Like, hey, what would I pay for this? Because I for a long time, there was a lady that I follow on TikTok about astrology stuff. And every new moon and full moon, she puts out these beautiful work. She's very aesthetically pleasing. I'm really not. But she puts out these amazing workbooks of shadow work, like that goes for the theme of that new moon and full moon, and like specific to where it's going to be in your chart. That's a lot of astrology language. Anyway, I purchased those, and I was like, they're so cheap that I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I feel good about that. If I as a consumer don't mind doing that, I'm gonna make mine about that price too. Like, mine's a little cheaper than hers, but she also got a lot more like cute stuff in hers. You know, like, I'm learning to be a little more aesthetically cute in my stuff, but like, it's not great. But the overall stuff in it is good, but like, I'm learning about color schemes and things. It doesn't come naturally to me at all. At all. That was never the way my brain really worked. And so, well, I do well off a template, but then I can like, oh, okay, I kind of see now, and then change things around. But in terms of like super aesthetically pleasing, not your girl. That's this is my background for my podcast too. This is exactly where I am. I'm working on it. We got some ideas in the works, because I don't want to just like rush and make a decision about something like that. And so it's just, slow going, but it's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight back here, because I'm
But
not good at that.
But you know what? Like, evolving as you go, that's the way to do it, right? Like, I can't even tell you at the beginning of my journey when I started talking to people, sharing stuff, some of the stuff that I created, if I look back on it now, I'm like, "Oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, like,
Mm-hmm.
what were you thinking?" But, like, you learn. You
Yeah.
you learn as you go, and it's also, you listen to the people who are showing up for you and listening to what you have
Yes.
to say. And you start to hear, okay, this might be, this was one thing I found. This might be what I want to create, but this is what they're telling me they need. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same thing.
Yes, you're
And
so right.
and so what I love about your booklets is that it's based on what you're hearing. It's based on the podcast, it's based on client work. But there's also that attachment for you, like this is your expertise. You are an
Right.
expert in this field. And so it brings so much credibility to everything that you do. I'm just so impressed with your work and how you decided to make this turn. I'm so grateful we got to chat today. You have to come back again though. We didn't get
I would
enough.
love to. Anytime, anytime. I'm so grateful that you had me. I've loved getting to talk with you. Thank you. Your praise does mean a lot to me. And yeah, and I'm open to collaboration too. I've been trying to collaborate with people. I'm trying to build community. I'm
Yeah.
lacking in friendships that are local, so I'm just trying to create a little army of people like me out here on the web.
Well, sign me up. I'm right here with you.
Awesome.
Um, before we get to you telling us how we can find you and your work, um, this is a quote of yours. You are already all the things you're trying to become. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, I read that yesterday as I was doing my notes, and I teared up. I did. It was such a beautiful, beautiful thing to say to people, and to make people feel whole when they feel broken. That is a gift, and you have the gift that you're sharing with everyone. So thanks.
Thank you for
Um,
sharing that.
Yeah, it did. I teared up. I did. So Melissa, tell our audience how they can find you, how they can connect with you, how they can find those booklets. And all of
So,
this will be in the show notes. I will include all of this in the show notes with the episode.
okay, I'm very active on Instagram. That's probably the social media I'm the most active on because I'm a real consumer of TikTok, but I'm not a creator on there very much. I need to be probably, who knows. But so on Instagram and Facebook, in my bio is my link tree. And Melissa.Hepner. Melissa spelled weird because I had weird parents, Malisa, but I have that link tree on there, which is direct links to the workbooks, to the podcast, to my website. But my website is also empowered with melisahepner.org. And I'm pretty sure the workbooks are linked directly from there as well. If not,
I think
if
they
not, I
are.
need to keep that.
I looked at those yesterday. I
Okay,
think
I
they
try
are
to keep
directly.
that every time I do something new to a link tree. I try to go remember to do it, update my website too. But yeah, so uh, Instagram is probably the easiest just because it's all right there on the link tree. And if you want to send me a DM, I love hearing from people. So
That's great. Okay, Melissa, I'm going to send you more dates for your second episode, ma'am.
awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing to help so many people.
Man, thank you for having me and thank you for doing the work that you're doing. We're a little army. We're gonna make those ripples.
I tell you, we're going to continue to ripple it out for sure. All right, you guys, thanks for another great episode. We'll see you again soon on Broken Beautiful Me. Thank you for joining me today on Broken Beautiful Me. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. Remember, every scar tells a story, and every story has the power to heal. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to me, and it helps spread the message of hope and resilience to more people like us. Don't forget to leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and family. Together, we can create a community of strength and beauty in our brokenness. Until next time, stay strong, stay beautiful, and keep shining.